Hello beautiful people. So today's video is going to be on officer safety crash course as well as liability. And so let's get started. So the first point is liability. I keep getting asked by various students about, is there a lot of liability in law enforcement? And the simple answer is yes, there's a lot of liability in law enforcement, but as long as you're following training and doing what you're supposed to be doing, obviously you're not going to get in trouble, right? Again, assuming you're following all department policies and directives and the code of conduct and all this other stuff, right? But the other side of this is we need to talk about officer safety, because we need to keep you alive through the shift all the way until the end of the shift when you get to go home to your family. Because that's probably one of the most important things, is that we get into law enforcement to protect the communities that we serve, but the goal is to stay alive and stay safe so that you make it home to the end of your shift to your families and friends. Now first, let me just put a shout out to all of you who are currently in law enforcement, men and women who are protecting all the communities in this great country of ours. I know you guys are putting your life on the line every day, but this type of video is a way to kind of refresh your mind into what you're supposed to be doing in terms of officer safety and avoiding or minimizing liability. So first point, at the start of your shift, when basically you're getting ready in the locker room, you're getting your uniform ready, you're getting all of your equipment ready. When I was a police officer, I had a picture of my family in my locker door. So when I would open the locker door, I had a picture of my family, my children. And so I was psychologically getting ready for the shift. And so I would be talking to myself, okay, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna have a safe shift, we're gonna be, of service to the community, but at the same time, we're gonna be officer safety minded. And again, sometimes some of you are afraid to raise your voice, where there was a time and a place to do it. Let me see your hands, like really loud, so the person knows, he sees that I'm going for something. Drop the weapon, right? Don't resist. All of the things that you're taught in training at the beginning of the shift are going through your head, full of emotions. You're checking to make sure your gun is clean, that your clips are fully loaded with ammunition. You're shaking your OC spray can to make sure it's full. You might have some dogs or people on the shift that will try to attack you, so that's always good. You want to check your taser. What is the level energy left on your taser? Just by simply turning it on and looking at that, does it have enough battery for you to go through the shift? Something as simple as a flashlight. You have to make sure that you carry a spare battery. When I was on patrol, I had a mag light, which was very bright, but I always carried a spare battery. So on my days off, those two batteries were charging, and I always had a backup plan. If you're working swing shift, you start the day when it's bright, you can see out, no problem. But once it gets dark, right, into the evening, into the night, if you don't have that flashlight, you're definitely in danger, right? Because if you can't see it, they're going to be doing something behind your back and your life's on the line. So again, the beginning of the shift is a time when you don't take shortcuts. Before you leave the station, you want to make sure that you have everything you need, that your flashlight is fully charged, that you have your baton, you have your taser, you have your mace, that your radio is fully charged. You're going to be doing a radio check, calling dispatch or whatever. How do you copy? The dispatch is going to say either reception good or reception poor. If they say reception poor, you need to make a U-turn, go back into the department and get another portable radio. Backup weapons. I had my duty weapon, I had a backup weapon, then I had the shotgun, then I had the AR-15 in the car. And so at the beginning of the shift, now we're moving out into the lot where all of your patrol cars are kept. And so you're going to be checking all of your lights in your patrol car. You're going to be checking the back seat for weapons or maybe drugs that were left over from the previous shift. You're going to be checking to make sure the switch that operates the release of the shotgun or your assault rifle are working.
Police reported ahead.
You're going to be checking, going through a slow traffic CHP has a slow traffic, so you might hear this, and so try to disregard it. But it's just an alert to let me know that everything's safe. And by the way, some of you, it cracks me up. You're supposed to be listening to the message, but some of you continue to get mesmerized by the fact that I get recorded while I'm driving. Whenever you find a section that makes it illegal for me to hands-free record myself, let me know. But until then, I urge you to focus on learning what I'm telling you on this channel, so it'll keep you alive, make you successful, give you a productive career, finish your college education, etc. So anyway, let's keep going. So now you're on the lot, you're checking your car, you've checked the back seat, you've checked the switch that operates the shotgun, operates the release of the assault rifle, you've checked your spotlights, very important. At nighttime, if you have a patrol car where the spotlight does not work, red line that car, go get another car. It's important that you don't ignore these little signs. These are things that are going to help you later on the shift. And so then you check your light bar. In California, we have to have a steady red, and then there's various settings. So the first setting, you have your ambers in the back. The second setting, you have your takedown lights, which has a steady red light, which is required by law. And then all the way active, you have all of your strobes and corner strobes, everything else. Make sure everything works. Tap your siren. Is that working? Tap your air horn. Is that working? Good. So now get yourself comfortable, right? The next step is to get out of the car and walk around the car to see if there's any damage from the previous shift. Earlier I was talking about minimizing liability. You have to minimize your liability starting at the beginning of your shift. You don't want to accept blame for a previous officer that crashed into a pole and then decided to park the patrol car without telling anyone. You are responsible for that car. It's similar to when you rent a car, you walk around that car to make sure there's no damage. The patrol car is the same way. Is there any damage from the previous shift? And if so, you have to report it. It's not one of these things, well, I don't want to get that guy in trouble, we're buddies, we hang out on our days off. No, like when you check out your car, you're required to report any damage. Look at your tires, they look in good condition, right? Is there a crack in the windshield? Is there anything wrong with the car, right? In general, there's nothing wrong with the car, get inside the car. Now, you're gonna check your gas tank, right? How full is it? I had this policy that as a police officer, at the beginning of the shift, I would always put a full tank. I didn't care if it was a quarter of a tank, I didn't care if it was barely under. I always drove to the courtyard and then I fueled my car. I also drove the car through the car wash. The city had a car wash where you just drive it through, basically, and then if you want, you can dry it a little bit, or the blow dryers would dry the patrol car. Why am I telling you this? Because image is also everything in law enforcement, right? If you look like a slob when you work as a peace officer, people are going to treat you like one, right? You're not going to have dry food on your uniform. You're going to have a nice uniform, nicely pressed. I found out that you can order these uniform shirts that have the creases, right, melted into them. And so it was easy to send it to the cleaners, come back, it always looked perfect. And that's another thing, uniforms, right? How often do you change them? I never wore the same uniform more than 2 days. In the summertime, sometimes I only wore it 1 day, depending on how hot it was. Why? Because then you have something called body odor, right? Body odor. And along with body odor, you need to gargle so you don't have bad breath, right? These are all things that come into play. I always polished my shoes. I always had a clean uniform. I always checked my weapon, right? I always cleaned my weapon often, right? I always had a backup weapon, I told you earlier. And so this is in preparation for the shift that you're getting ready to start, right? In my car, I also had the operational directives and policy manual. Some officers think that's not important. For me, it was important. And I want to carry that in the car. Why? I may have a question. I want to refer back to something. I want to make sure that I'm following department policy. And those of you that are going to be working in law enforcement, you got to go through this motion of preparation. Preparation will minimize liability. Preparation will focus on officer safety. And so anyway, the beginning of the shift, that's pretty much how it went. Made sure that there was plenty of flares in the trunk of my car in case I had to go to an accident and I had to put some flares down. Made sure there was some protective equipment, right? personal protective equipment, PPE? Did we have the gloves? You know, because obviously you're going to be dealing with some people that could be bleeding. I would always grab a couple of those gloves and put them in the back of my uniform pocket. Or if I was wearing the BDUs, the military style uniform, I would put them in one of the pockets. I always had those surgical gloves on me. Why? Because if you have a small cut and you come in contact with someone that has some kind of blood-borne pathogen disease on it, you know, bacteria, etc., you're going to get sick. And so you need to minimize this. In my patrol bag, I had the little CPR mask that goes around the nose and the mouth area that has a valve that only lets air go into the person, and then if they throw up, it doesn't come back on you. These are all things that, like, in the beginning of the shift, you're just checking, right? Don't skip any of these. Do not skip any of the things I'm telling you, right? Again, you're preparing. Now, you are now in the mindset. Your car is fully fueled. Your car is clean. Your uniform is looking clean. You're looking sharp. Shoes are polished, boots, and you're ready to go. And so now, be aware of your surroundings as you take off from the corporation yard, as you take off from your station, from a gas station. Be aware of your surroundings always, right? People know you, they see you, you're in uniform, you stand out. Trust me, they know, especially now. Everybody's got a little video camera, the YouTube, you know, when I put something on YouTube that you did wrong. So you got to be really careful at all times, right? Just recognize that there are people out there that are going to try to come up to you, to try to get you to react, to try to get you to do the wrong thing, right? I recently watched a video of these CHP officers, and I hate to bring that up because I think the CHP is a great agency, but every agency needs to learn from other agencies' mistakes. And they had a DUI suspect that basically refused all tests, and so they got a warrant to pull blood from him. And then while they're holding him down to get blood from him, nurse is pulling blood, all of a sudden, you know, there's no response from the guy. And so those officers stood there for quite a while until they called for medics, right? Until they called for ambulance, until they called for medical aid, stuff that we learn in the academy, stuff that we're taught in the field training officer program. You cannot ignore those type of events. And so I shared this with you because those of you who go out there, you use this to your advantage, right? If you go to a call, never cancel the ambulance. You go to a traffic accident, you hear an ambulance coming, wait till they get there, wait till they ask everybody if they're injured or not. They say no, they decline medical attention, have them sign the release and waiver. Now you're off the hook, they're off the hook. And so don't get so cocky that you don't realize who you are, right? You're a police officer, you're not a medical doctor. And so if you have a traffic accident...
Watch out, vehicle on shoulder ahead.
If you have a traffic accident and somebody called for an ambulance, don't you be the one to cancel the ambulance. Because the second you cancel that ambulance, and now the person has a seizure and the ambulance is already 2 miles away, now you may have some liability on your hands. Again, when it's safe, have them come in, have them check the people. You're there, you're getting paid, you're a public servant. And so make the most out of your shift. Anyway, the beginning of swing shift, it's light, it's bright, and people are somehow getting off work, so there's a lot of traffic. Then, as people get home, the domestic violence calls start coming in, especially when it's the end of the month and there's no money left, especially when alcohol is involved, especially when drugs are involved, especially when infidelity is involved. There's a bunch of different reasons why these calls start coming up, domestic violence, etc., etc. Now, on swing shift, it starts getting dark. You have to rely on your mag light. You have to rely on a little light that you can attach to your gun. You have to rely, and if you can, get, like I carry a mini mag light on my belt. Then I had the large mag light that went into my side pocket in the back of my uniform. And so I always put it in the patrol car, where when I got out of the patrol car, I immediately grabbed that mag light. And if for some reason the mag light went dead, the battery went dead, then I could go to my secondary small flashlight on your belt. These are things that you cannot ignore. You simply cannot ignore. And so when you make the traffic stop, if possible, always call out the license plate and the location, you know, so that they know where you're at, right? And then hit the lights, okay? Call the license plate and location, hit the lights. Some jurisdictions want you to call out the location first, which is probably a better idea because they know where you're at. If the radio dies for some reason, or you get ambushed, assaulted, and you can't get to the radio, at least they know your location. So when you go on these calls for service, officer safety, officer safety, officer safety, hands, right? Let me see your hands. Let me see your, use that voice modulation, right? None of this little, excuse me, can I see your hands? It's like, no, let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Your voice progressively gets louder to get their compliance. You're allowed to do it. So on traffic stops, there's the A pillar. That's what you see over here to my left shoulder. That's called the A pillar. You do not go past the A pillar if you're a cop in California. Now other states, and maybe if you're in some counties, and it's totally fine to walk up, like you're in Mayberry, and you walk up to the driver and you stand right there with your chest, you know, in the middle of the window, waiting to get ambushed or shot. No. Traffic stops, if you're gonna approach on the right side, you're gonna stop at the A pillar. If, as I did later on in my career, you decide to approach on the right side, on the passenger side, that may be a safer bet. That may be a safer bet. So I started getting out of my patrol car, walking around the trunk area, and then walking alongside my patrol car to the suspect. Do not walk between the suspect's trunk and your front bumper. They will smash you. You'll lose your legs, your ability to walk. These are all things that should be going through your mind. So you come around on the passenger side, you touch the trunk so you can get a feel, make sure, push it down, make sure that it's not unlocked, somebody could be in there, and then you walk up to the car and you start looking into the car. Somebody asked me, what if the windows are tinted? You can say, driver, turn off your car. Boom, they turn off the car. Driver, put all your windows down. They can put all the windows down. What if they don't? You make a call, you make a decision. Do you approach, you wait for a backup, or you just wait for the driver to listen? Put all your windows down. Then all the windows come down, right? Then we see your hands, you know, people in the back seat, hands on the back of the headrest, okay? Tell them why you stopped them right away. I stopped you for speeding. You need to see your license, registration, proof of insurance. Everybody in the car, I'd like you to keep your hands where I could see them, right? Again, be polite, but be firm. You're a professional. You're in uniform. You're enforcing the law. You're not there to get killed. You're not there to get injured, okay? And you're not there to audition for any kind of actor roles, right? You're basically doing what you're supposed to be doing. I will tell you this, 97% of the time, people will comply with your orders. I know most of you have been watching YouTube videos and you only watch the extreme part of the YouTube video where this officer, this happened, blah, blah, blah. But no, I'm telling you right now, men and women in law enforcement, thousands of them, thousands and possibly millions in different law enforcement capacities, are doing traffic stops every day throughout this great country, right? And the majority of the time, 95 to 97% of the time, everything runs smooth. People give you their driver's license, people give you the registration, people give you the insurance. Now the 3%, right? The 3% of the people will try to get you to say something out of your mouth, right? Remember, this is not a retaliatory type of action. You're making a traffic stop because you're enforcing the law. And so you're going to stay professional. When you wear your uniform, I mention this in my classes all the time, you're representing the chief of police and the city you work for. And if you're working in the county, you're representing the sheriff. And so you must always stay professional. Be careful what comes out of your mouth. You can think of stuff, but just don't let it come out of your mouth and become a verbal, because it could lead to escalation of the person. What'd you call me? What'd you say about my family? What are you saying, officer? I don't like how you're talking to me. That kind of stuff, right? Now, all of a sudden, the second the person starts being difficult, call for a backup unit. Always call for a backup unit. Make sure your camera's on, right? Make sure your camera's on, and always call for a backup unit. There's no need to rush the situation. Take your time, pace yourself, right? We're gonna forward now to a regular call for service, domestic violence, right? Your department will have you read how you're supposed to respond to domestic violence calls. And so most of the time, you need to know that one side of the street is even numbers, the other side of the street is odd numbers, and then you're gonna try to park a couple of houses before you get to the actual call, right? Don't slam the door, right? Make sure you just close the door lightly. Make sure nothing on your belt is rattling, no rattling keys. I had a little key keeper that was Velcro that would keep all the keys from rattling, right? You want to do a stealth approach. You want to wait for your backup. When the backup gets there, who's going to be the contact and who's going to be the cover? But pause, listen to what's going on. They'll teach you this in the academy, but in case you forgot, listen to what's going on, right? And so then you're going to listen, you're going to communicate to other officers coming in, etc., etc. When you walk up to the door, we just had our shooting simulator training yesterday, and during the shooting simulator training, we were discussing not to stand in front of the front door. So when you walk up to the door, whether it's an apartment, a house, whatever, a room, you're always going to stand to the other side of the door, to the left or to the right. To the left if you're right-handed, so you can knock on the door. Left-handed, maybe get to the right side. But just again, you knock and you stay away from the door. Bullets will go through the door. And so when the person finally opens the door, you want to see their hands. You want to see hands, right? And I know this video has lasted a long time, but I think it's very important that we cover these bases, right? It's very, very, very important. So don't get relaxed. And the last call that I will tell you is when you're on the street, you contact someone. I know if it's in the middle of winter, they want to put their hands in their pocket. You need to search them first and keep those hands out of pockets. Pockets contain weapons. Pockets contain things that can damage you, that can hurt you, that can kill you. And so you got to watch people's hands. One thing that I noticed yesterday on the shooting simulator, we first did, single officers going through the shooting simulator, and then we did, 2 officers. And when we assigned one officer to be the contact and one to be the cover, right? The cover officer does not engage in verbal communication with the person. That cover officer is just there to cover the contact officer, right? This is very important. Short of like the first contact officer lost his voice, there's no need for you to speak up. The suspect doesn't need to know you're there, especially at nighttime. They don't know you're there, especially when the spotlights are in their car. The contact officer is talking to the driver, talking to the passengers. The cover officer is kind of watching him, kind of peeking in the car, see if they can see any weapons. But again, if he sees something, he alerts the other officer. They step back, they have a communication, a conversation. If they're going to a call, like an active shooter call, with both guns are drawn, right? Automatically, whenever you hear active shooter, your gun should be out. Remember, communicate with each other, right? Communicate, tell them to, do you see the guy's hands? Be careful, blah, blah. It's important that you communicate. And lastly, always let dispatch know what's going on, right? Shots fired, I got a person armed with a weapon, he's refusing to comply, etc., etc. That information needs to come out so that the dispatcher knows what's going on, other officers know what's going on, and you will get help. So don't believe that you're going to do this by yourself. You have to rely on your fellow partner, okay, on your beat partner, on your backup, on your, maybe you're riding a 2-officer car. You guys should be driving around communicating. What if this happens? What would I do? What if this happens? What would I do? And this has to be an ongoing conversation, remember? And when do you relax? After you get home to your family, right? On the way home, you're basically decompressing. You're going back to normal citizen, and you no longer have to worry, because at home, you're a parent, you're a brother, you're a sister, you're a mother, father. Go into that role, right? And leave your job at work so that your hair doesn't get gray very fast. Okay. Anyway, or
Watch
you
out.
lose your hair.
Construction on road ahead.
All right, guys. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please continue sending me, suggestions for videos. I'm currently trying to put something together on the new post-pellet B. There's been some modifications. There's students asking me questions about how to pass especially the last section where you have to fill out words. So stay tuned for another one of those videos. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, like the video, and then share it with others that will benefit from the information. Take great care out there, and we'll talk to you soon.